O textoi acute miritra longo. Michmethat 396 equipped with Philistine weapons found at the site, pursued the fleeing enemy forces. Joined by Israelites who had gone into hiding and those who had sided with the Philistines, they kept striking down the Philistines from Michmash to Ajalon. 1 14. 15-23, 31. According to 1 Samuel 13. 5, the Philistine forces at Michmash included 30,000 war chariots. This number is far greater than that involved in several other military expeditions. Compare JG 4. 13. 2 ch 12. 2, 3. 14. 9, and it is hard to imagine how so many war chariots could have been used in mountainous terrain. For this reason 30,000 is generally viewed as a scribal error. The Syriac Peshitta and the Lacardian edition of the Greek Septuagint read 3,000, and numerous Bible translations follow this rendering. At J.B. Mo, however, even lower figures have been suggested. Centuries later, the prophecy of Isaiah mentions Michmash as the place where the conquering Assyrian would deposit his articles. Issa 10. 24, 28. After the Israelite returned from Babylonian exile in 537 BCE, Michmash was apparently reoccupied by Benjamites. As 2. 1, 2, 27. NE 7. 31. 11. 31. Michmethath Michmiddle.Methath. A site on the boundary between Ephraim and Manasseh. It is identified with Batulajil, a short distance east of Shechem. This agrees with the biblical statement that Michmethath was in front of Shechem. Jos 16. 5, 6. 17. 7. Mitri possibly from a root meaning cell. A Benjamite and an ancestor of Elah who resided in Jerusalem after the Babylonian exile. 1 ch 9. 1-3, 7, 8. Middin. A place in the Judean wilderness. Jos 15. 20, 61. Middin is perhaps to be identified with Bet Abodabak, situated in the low-lying plain called El Baki Abikali, the Valley of Acre, near the NW end of the Dead Sea. Midian Middle. And Midianites Midianites of belonging to Midian. 1. One of Abraham's sons by his concubine Keturah. The father of Ephah, Hanok, Abida, and Eldar. GE 25. 1, 2, 4. 1 ch 1. 32, 33. Before his death, Abraham gave presents to Midian and the other sons of his concubines and then sent them to the land of the east. GE 25. 5, 6. 2. The descendants of Abraham's son Midian are collectively designated as Midian and Midianites. New 31. 2, 3. At times the Bible seemingly refers to them as Ishmaelites. Compare GE 37. 25, 27, 28, 36. 39. 1. JG 8. 22, 24. This may imply that the descendants of Abraham through his sons Ishmael and Midian were much alike in their way of life, and there may have been a further amalgamation through intermarriage among the two peoples. It also appears that at least some of the Kenites were known as Midianites. Since the Kenites are already mentioned as a people before Midian's birth, this may mean that Miz's Kenite brother-in-law Hobab was a Midianite merely from a geographic standpoint. GE 15. 18, 19. New 10. 29. JG 1. 16. 4. 11. See Ishmaelite. Kenite. Being descendants of Abraham, the Midianites likely spoke a language that closely resembled Hebrew. Gideon, for instance, apparently had no difficulty in understanding the Midianites. JG 7. 13-15. 8. 18, 19. There is also a possibility, however, that Gideon learned the tongue of the Midianites, Israel having been under their domination for 7 years. JG 6. 1. The Midianites were primarily nomadic tent dwellers. JG 6. 5, 6. Hab 3. 7 but in Moses' day they are also reported as residing in cities. New 31. 9, 10 At that time they were quite prosperous, having asses and animals of the flock and the herd numbering into the tens of thousands. New 31. 32-34 Their riches included gold ornaments having a total weight of more than 191 kilograms 512 pounds t, valued now at over $2,150,000. New 31. 50-52. Apparently both men and women adorned themselves with gold ornaments, including nose rings and earrings. Midianite kings were arrayed in garments of wool dyed reddish purple, and even their otextoi acute miritra longo midwife 397,000 of Israelite males to become involved in sexual immorality and idolatry in connection with Baal of Peor. New 25. 1-9, 14-18. 31. 15, 16. 1 Co 10. 8. Re 2. 14 Thereafter the Israelites, in obedience to divine command, took vengeance upon Midian. The Midianite cities and walled camps in the area were consigned to the fire. Thousands of domestic animals and many gold articles were taken as spoils. With the exception of the virgins, all, including the 5 kings of Midian, Evi, Rechem, Zur, Hur, and Reba, were put to death. New 31. Less than 3 centuries later, the Midianites had recovered from this blow sufficiently to be able to oppress the Israelites for 7 years. Compare JG 6. 1. 11. 25, 26. Along with the Amalekites and Distiners, these tent-dwelling nomads, with their livestock and innumerable camels, penetrated Israel's land all the way to Gaza, plundering the domestic animals of the Israelites and also consuming their harvests. JG 6. 2-6. Crushing defeat by Gideon. Finally, when Israel called to Jehovah for aid, he raised up Gideon to deliver them. JG 6. 7-16 The rout that Jehovah effected by means of him was so complete that there is no record of any further harassment from the Midianites. JG 8. 28 Their princes Oreb and Zeb were slain, as were their kings Zebah and Zalmunna. JG 7. 25. 8. 5, 21. See Gideon. Centuries later the victory over Midian was still alluded to when illustrating the smashing of enemy power. Issa 9. 4. 10. 24-26. See also PS 83. 9-11. In contrast with the earlier enmity of the Midianites, a restoration prophecy pointed to the time when young male camels of Midian and of Ephah would bring gifts to Zion. Issa 60. 5, 6, 11-14. 3. The territory occupied by the Midianites was known as Midian or the land of Midian. 1 K 11. 18. Hab 3. 7 It is generally agreed that the descendants of Midian established themselves mainly in the NW part of Arabia just east of the Gulf of the Kaaba. But the extent of their land holdings is uncertain and must have varied in the course of their history. During Moses' lifetime many Midianites were apparently living near Moabite territory and in the vicinity of the region controlled by Amorite king Sihon. New 22. 4. 31. 8-12. Jos 13. 21. Moses himself spent about 40 years in the land of Midian. There he married Zipporah, one of the 7 daughters of Jethro the priest of Midian. See Jethro. By her he had 2 sons, Gershom and Eliezer. Moses' work as a shepherd for his father-in-law took him to the mountainous area around Horeb, suggesting that he resided in the vicinity of the Gulf of the Kaaba. However, whether the region around Horeb was then a part of the land of Midian cannot be determined. X2. 15-22. 3. 1. 4. 18-20. 18. 1-4. Act 7. 29, 30 It seems that at a later time Edom was at least in part referred to as Midian. 1 K 11. 14-18. Midwife. The Hebrew term for midwife is a feminine participle of the verb yamidal laid bare. give birth, and thus literally refers to a woman who helps to bear or give birth to a child. See birth. A midwife helps the mother during the ordeal of labor, and once the child is born she severs its navel cord and washes the infant. In ancient times she would also rub it with salt and swaddle it with cloth bands. As 16. 4. Close friends or relatives and elder women in the community sometimes served in this capacity, but because of the special knowledge, skill, and experience necessary, particularly when the delivery was difficult, midwifery was pursued as a profession by few. In the case of Benjamin's birth, when it was going hard with Rachel in making the delivery, the midwife was able to assure Rachel that she would have the son, though Rachel herself died. GE 35. 16-19 During the complicated delivery of Tammuz's twins, Perez and Zerah, the midwife was alert to identify the one she expected to be the firstborn. She quickly tied a scarlet piece on the extended otex to a acute Miritra Longo, Migdal 398 Migdal Tower of God. A fortified city in the territory of Naphtali. Jos 19. 32, 35, 38 One possible identification that has been suggested for Migdal is Majadel. This site is on a hill about 17 kilometers 11 miles of Tyre. Migdal Gad Tower of Good Fortune. A Judean city in the Shephelah. Jos 15. 20, 33, 37 It is perhaps to be identified with Bet El Madila Horvet Migdal Gad, about 20 kilometers 12 MW of Hebron. Migdal Tower. 1. An Egyptian site used as a reference point in describing the location of Israel's last encampment at Pi-Hahiroth before crossing the Red Sea. They were to encamp before Pi-Hahiroth between Migdal and the sea in view of Baal Zephon. X14. 2. New 33. 5-8 Scholars generally hold that Migdal is likely an Egyptian pronunciation for the Hebrew Migdal